Hi there, it's good to see you guys. It's Mrs. Chappie. Welcome to California History. This is a fun class to talk about today because we will be talking about the moving west. This is the time where California history and US history overlap. It is when the settlers are coming, the pioneers are coming from the East Coast, that manifest destiny that we talk about in the US history class, moving across the United States from sea to shining sea and end up in California. In California history, we have been talking about what was happening in California, and now we're seeing those pioneers come over there. We talked about the gold discovery, we talked about California's statehood, and now we're seeing the people migrating. Migrating means moving from one place to another, from the east side of the United States to this new state, the state of California. So if you're in my US history class, I maybe have one or two of you that are overlapping. Some of this you'll go, oh my goodness, Mrs. Chappie, we talked about this in US history. Yeah, this is where California history and US history come together. So well, first I'm going to tell you what we would be doing. If we were in the classroom, we would be starting one of Mrs. Chappie's most favorite popsicle stick projects. What we were going to build was going to be an actual wagon. These wagons have axles, they have spinning wheels, they're made out of course, popsicle sticks and glue guns. They have all the various parts. I have linked below this top of our wagon. It's called a bonnet. It's the top of the bonnet, and we would have studied all of the very specific parts of the wagon. For example, let's go ahead and take a look at this. Wagons have this top part here. This top part is called the bonnet, and you would have put that on top of these right here, which are called wagon bows. These are the bows that hold up the bonnet. The wagon is made of these side parts called the sideboards that make kind of this box part on the bottom. We would have probably put, it looks like you can see it's on Mrs. Chappie's, it fell off, but it has an end here, and this part is called the Yankee bed. This part at the bottom down here that you would have built out of your popsicle sticks, if you can see, would have been waterproof. It would have been waterproof because that would have allowed the wagon to kind of act like a raft or a boat to go across any water that they came across. There's the iron tire, there's the hubs that we would have built there. The neck, the yoke, the various parts of the wagon, that are all listed on your spiffy illustrations. So if you're at home and if you happen to have popsicle sticks, you can build this. I'm praying and hoping that we end up back in the classroom. If we are back in the classroom, we will of course build this. I actually have all your wheels cut out and the wagon will actually spin. But if not, maybe you can build it at home. And we're just going to an alternative learning. But I wanted you to see what we had planned. This was the Moving West unit. So I will tell you a little bit more about this. I'm going to put my wagon down and kind of be sad that we're not making it together, but look forward to a time that we can. I'm showing you angles of it, so if you decide you want to build it, you can. This base of the Yankee bed, the waterproof base, it's built just the way we built our Sutter's Mill, where you have the popsicle sticks and then you unite it together. This should look familiar to you. This would have been the base of our Sutter's Mill, same approach. These are half sticks. You cut them in half so that you make the sides of the bed there. And that's it. The axle is put through a popsicle or through a straw so that it actually spins. But I'm going to say goodbye to my wagon, although he looks so good. And hopefully we'll be able to do that. So what I'm going to do today is teach you more about the Moving West. Some of it we talked about in California history, some of it's a little bit different. So I'm going to go right now and share my screen with you so we can look at Mrs. Chappie PowerPoint. I am not going to embed the video. I do have a Mr. Betts video that I will link below. Instead of playing it within this, you can just click on the separate link. When I play it within this, it has sound issues. Although I think I've learned, thank goodness, Jude's brother and Jude helped me work that out yesterday, but I think we've got it figured out. But so I want you to watch the Mr. Betts video as well as my spiffy little PowerPoint here. So again, topic moving west. This is our week 8. We have 4 more weeks left of this semester. Fingers crossed, praying, hoping, really hope that we're together for some of those weeks. But if not, we'll just keep meeting like this and that'll be okay too. The thing I wanted to review with you, California history, is a little bit of the US history. That this is the United States over here. You see my mouse moving around. This is California. We've spent all of our time talking about California. We know that California, yeah, was part of the Spanish territory at one time. Spain controlled it. We always review over and over. First, it was indigenous people, then it was the Spanish, then it was the Mexicans, and then it was California. So at the period that it was Spanish was when California expanded, doubled our size. We got that Louisiana territory, the Louisiana Purchase, if you've heard about that in California history. And during the Louisiana Purchase, it's this green area here, that was bought by Thomas Jefferson. Sometimes I like to call him Tommy J. Thomas Jefferson. And Thomas Jefferson set an expedition, some explorers, to go see what this new territory was. And those explorers are our friends Lewis and Clark. Lewis and Clark landed up in what is Oregon. They did not come down to California. They were up in Oregon. Well, if they didn't come to California, Mrs. Chappie, why are we spending time talking about them? Well, we're spending time talking about them because they are the first that went across this new land, this United States. And the claims to the Oregon territory was based on Lewis and Clark going there. And now when Lewis and Clark went, they were pretty far up north. Now, how are we going to get to the south? Well, we're going to have a guy come along who is going to find a better route. And I want you to at least kind of hear his name. The way that Lewis and Clark went was too rugged for ordinary travelers. You could not take a spiffy little wagon like this on the trail that Lewis and Clark went along. It wouldn't have worked. As it was, they were in canoes and they ended up having to take the canoes out and carry the canoes on their backs and all kinds of big, big old problems. So along comes this guy. Gotta move I can make myself big. Did you just see what I did? That's pretty cool. So you can see me. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm getting excited. I'm learning new tricks on this. Oh, how fun. I'm so powerful. Okay. I wanted to talk to you guys. Sorry about that. I got excited for a minute. Talk to you about this guy. I'm wondering if any of you recognize this character. He's in a movie I like. He's in the movie Night at the Museum, and his name was Jedediah Smith. And Jedediah Smith was a fur trapper who found a better way to go west. And that's important to California because his better way was lower, it was flatter, and I keep getting to grab this, the wagon could go across that new way. And so I wanted to at least mention him to you. The way he found was through the Rocky Mountains, and it was called the South Pass. And like I said, wagons could go on it. Here's another picture of the guy from that movie that I like, Night at the Museum. If you haven't seen it, you should watch it. It'd be something fun to do for a family night. And this shows his trail. Now we can see that he ended up coming to California. And this is right over here is the South Pass. So Jedediah Smith, the trails that he went to California, and ultimately it's going to have the California Trail that's going to come into Sacramento when we start having those 49ers looking for their gold. They want to get to that. Thought I'd show you what Jedediah Smith actually looked like. He was not a short little guy from Night at the Museum. he was in fact this character right there, a fur trapper. Now this shows, now Lewis and Clark, they went up a lot further north. This shows how those wagon trails developed as they were opened up, first by Lewis and Clark, then by Jedediah Smith, and then ultimately where thousands and thousands of pioneers came west, many of them coming into California when gold was discovered, and of course up to Oregon as too. But this gives you more of a area of where that California trail was. Fun Mrs. Chappie fact that probably doesn't matter. I have been visiting states. I've been to, I think my son would tell you, I've been to 42 of the states. I've been to every state around this. None of where this California trail was, this middle America, Utah, Colorado, Kansas, Nebraska, have not been to any of these states. Oklahoma and Missouri have not been there. Hopefully my plan is to go there this summer. Fingers crossed again on that. So this is the trail. You recognize it on the map. And this shows what it would have looked like. Now, I want to talk to you about what life was like on the trail. And before we do that, here I can just go big like this. I don't even have to end screen sharing. Look at all this power I have all of a sudden. I love it. I want to talk to you about this game. Not sure if I've told you this class about it, or maybe I just told my US history class. It is called Oregon Trail. And it talks about what this game you play, what it was like being a pioneer going on a wagon train. It's called a deck reality building game. Some of my students that love games would recognize that. It's where you build a world out of cards. And I want to use this game. If we were together, I actually bought 6 versions of this game that we could play with in class, but can't do that right now either, but I'm going to tell you about it. It talks about what you would need to go on the trail. So if you were packing up your wagon and you're getting ready to take your family, you're getting ready to go west, you're maybe looking for farming, maybe you'd heard about the gold and you're thinking that this is going to give you a better life, a new future, you want this new opportunity for your family, you pack up your wagon with your worldly belongings. And your wagon is full and you're heading west. Well, what are you going to put in your wagon? You have to put things that you'll need when you're there. You'll have to put things that you'll need when you're on the trail, as well as you'll have to be prepared for the future. Now, these wagon trains, they would go about maybe 2 miles an hour, not super, super fast. They would cover sometimes 10, going really fast, maybe 15, maybe 20. Most people, 10, 15 miles a day is all you would do, going 2 miles an hour. The journey from, I can go back and show you, look at how spiffy this is. Oops, there it is. The journey here from Independence, Missouri, where most of the wagon trains left from, to California, that whole distance is about 2,000 miles. So if you're going 2,000 miles, you're going maybe 10 miles a day, it's going to take you 5 months to get there. So when you load up your wagon, you're going to have to be full of everything you will need for 5 months. Right now, I'm taking care of my elderly parents. They live next door to me. I might have told some of you that before. And so we're not going out of the house a whole lot because I'm with these older people that I have to feed and everything. So we're keeping it germ-free from them. So I'm stocking up for about 2 weeks at a time. That takes a lot. Thinking 5 months, what they're going to have to put in that wagon, it's a ton of stuff. So in this game, you collect cards that shows what you would have to have. So you get these things called supply cards. And the things that would go in your wagon are spare parts. if you have an axle break, if you have a wheel break, if you have the tongue break, if you have any part of your wagon break, you can't go to the store and buy new wagon parts. So you have to make sure you have all the spare parts that you need for that wagon. You need to make sure you have some drinking water. Of course, along the way, you're hopeful to find water, but you need to make sure that you have some. And it's important that it be healthy water that you can drink, that's clean. You're going to need perhaps bullets. If you were to go hunting, if you were to try to find meat, you would need bullets. And so you're going to have some sort of device, a weapon to protect yourself and to hunt with. There wasn't a Safeway, there wasn't a meat department. You couldn't go get eggs. You would have to be able to have that. You're going to need clothes. You need shoes. If you're going 2,000 miles, and oftentimes people would have to walk alongside the wagon, there wasn't enough room for all the supplies and all the people, you're going to need to be able to have clothing to keep you dry, to keep you warm, and something on your feet to be able to walk. You're going to have food. How much food do you think you need? Well, apparently they would load it up with about, according to this, 200 pounds of food. Just the basics, not fancy, not a lot of variety, but just what you would need to be able to make it those 5 months. You're going to need your oxen. Your oxen are going to have to pull the wagon. So you're going to load up with oxen, maybe have a spare oxen. And I feel like I already did this. Oh, look, it was important enough. I got another supply card for spare parts. And any sort of medicine that you could take, or anything that you think that you might need. Now, medicine wasn't as advanced as we have now, so you can't actually go and get penicillin or anything like that, but they did have some things that would help, particularly with pain, things like that. Now, on the wagon train, there were lots of hazards. What's hazards mean? Hazards means things that are dangerous. The death toll was high. A lot of people didn't survive those 5 months, and they could die from, most commonly, disease. Now, on the game, you have calamity cards that show disease. For example, you could end up with measles and die. You could end up with dysentery. Dysentery is a disease that is in your intestines. It's from mostly drinking unclean, unhealthy water that has that bacteria and the disease within it. It causes severe vomiting, diarrhea, dehydration. Dysentery, not good. You could have, oh, I got some more. I got a lot of calamity cards. There must be a lot of things that bad could happen. You could end up with typhoid, another dangerous disease that could kill you. So disease was the worst killer. See, I even put on the PowerPoint dysentery. It was the worst. There could be accidents. You could be bitten by a snake. That would do you under. Rattlesnakes, very common in there. Oh, I found another disease card. Cholera. You could have another disease. You could break your arm. In this time of history, if you had something as simple as maybe a broken arm, many of you have broken your arm, you go to the hospital, you get a cast, life goes on. You couldn't do that on the wagon train. You could not simply cast your arm. Something as simple as a cut on your arm. We all get cuts and scrapes and things like that. But a cut on your arm could become infected. The infection could spread. It can get into your bloodstream, and a simple cut could be deadly. You could come across bad water. Remember, clean water was important, and bad water could cause that dysentery or other diseases. So another big problem. Children sometimes fell from the wagons. I remember reading a primary source account, someone's journal, and one of their children had fallen off the wagon and broken their neck. Terrible, horrible thing to happen, but it did. Children sometimes would leave the wagon in the evening and go out into the grasslands and literally disappear. The grass would be tall, as taller than a child, and the child would go into the grass and never to be seen again. I've read stories of that happening on the wagon train as well. There were animals, there were snakes, there were other things like that that could cause problems. Drowning could happen. You could go across a river and not know how to swim, be swept away. I have another calamity card for you. Here we have it here. Starvation. If you did not have enough food, if you were not able to hunt, if you were stuck. There was a terrible story of the Donner Party who was going across into California, heading to Sutter's Fort, as a matter of fact, and they were stuck in the snow and literally starved, the Donner Party there, resulting in eating whatever they could find. Sometimes there were Indian attacks. More likely you would deal with extreme cold. If you didn't have proper supplies, that could be very dangerous. Not enough food to eat. Let's go back, let's see what else. You would be having your horses and your oxen on the trail. You would have to make sure that you had enough grass to be able to feed those oxen. Not common, but there could be thievery. It's a card in the deck. I think they're just trying to make the game exciting. But this is something we talked about. You needed spare parts. You could have any one of these things happen. You could have a broken wheel. You could have a broken axle. Or you could have a broken tongue, the part that connects the wagon to the oxen to be pulled. So I wanted to use that game as kind of as a fun way of teaching you and explaining to you some of the hazards that happened along the Oregon Trail. So let's spend just a little bit of time talking about what life in the West would be like. There were lots of different groups of people that traveled the West. We're not going to talk about all of them, but I want you to kind of be aware of them. Explorers, Californios, mountain men, missionaries, pioneers, Mormons, 49ers, and Chinese. So one that we've spent a whole lot of time talking about, because this is California history, this is not US history. What we spent a lot of time talking about is this group called Californios. You're like, that is a weird word, Mrs. Jaffe. Yes, it is. It's not a cereal. We're not talking about Cheerios. We're talking about Spanish-speaking people who are in what is California today. And they called them Californios at the time. And they are the descendants and the remnants of those first Spanish missionaries. So we had the Spanish come and build the missions. We've talked a lot about that. Then Mexico declared its independence from Spain, but we still had people who were speaking Spanish. The Mexicans spoke Spanish because Spanish had colonized and occupied what is currently Mexico today. And so we have this legacy of Spanish speaking in California. We've talked about this a lot in this California history class, and we've brainstormed and we thought of California words for cities and roads: El Dorado, San Francisco, San Diego, Los Angeles, El Camino Real. It means the King's Highway. Almost every city in California has some El Camino somewhere in it. And we have talked about missions a lot. And we know that that was Junipero Serra who did it, just kind of reviewing a little bit of that. So another group that came out to California were the mountain men. These were people that got inspired by Lewis and Clark to get interested in an old industry. That industry was hunting and trapping of furs. The fur trade was big in the United States, but had not become super big in what we are calling what is California today, not over on the West Coast, very, very big on the East Coast. In fact, it was so big, the French and Indian War was all about who would get that Ohio Valley and be able to hunt and trap in that area. So after Lewis and Clark came out west, and then we had the wagon trains coming out west, we had people who were interested in this industry of fur trapping, the fur trade. So we had mountain men. So when we think about the people coming to California, we're looking at different groups that were there. There were those Spanish-speaking individuals who had that legacy and that history coming from Spain and Mexico. We have pioneers in their wagons coming to hopefully farm, bring their families, maybe search for gold. We have 49ers who are looking for gold coming out here for that. We have the people who are opening the stores who we know made more money than the people looking for the gold themselves. And then we have these mountain men who are trapping and interested in the fur trade, particularly the beaver and the Rockies. A little bit about their lives. They had a hard life. It was very hard for them, often died young. They were attacked. They had to deal with Native Americans who they were on their land, and there were conflicts. There were bears, there were wolves, there were all kinds of things going on like that that they had to deal with. One thing that they often, or I have read stories of, I don't know if often is the right word, but would die in accidents in rivers and things such as that. And pioneers, that's who we were talking about. The people in the wagons, the people that we talked about their experience, and they were seeking those homesteads, seeking that new life to build a farm or a ranch or things such as that. 49ers, we spent the whole last part of the class this semester talking about James Marshall, talking about Sutter's Mill. That's in your backyard. When other people are studying California history, maybe in Los Angeles, or when people are studying US history and how California became a state, to them, they're like, what is this Sutter's Mill? Where was it? You guys, like, it's in your backyard. This is where we are. So 2/3 of the people that were 49ers coming to look for gold in this California area were Americans coming from other places. 1/3 of them would have been immigrants from other countries who were coming to make their fortune here in California. They came from Europe, China, Australia, Mexico, to right here where we are today. So voila, there you go. Moving west, California history, how that all ties in together. Watch Mr. Betts' video. It's not specifically for California. It is for Oregon because the Oregon Trail, but the Oregon Trail, the California Trail, they often came together on one wagon train and then split, whether you're going to California or Oregon, depending. So it's the same type of information I want you to look at. And I think that's all that I wanted to teach you. So we understand the wagons were packed. They were full of all kinds of things. All kinds of calamities happened as they came on the wagon train. It was dangerous. There were lots of obstacles to overcome. And that's all that I have for you today. So if you build a wagon, please, please, please send me a picture of it. If you don't build it, that's okay too. You definitely don't have to, but I will put the bonnet printout, the top of the wagon. It's literally just one piece of, what do you call it? Computer paper, printer paper. It's just a piece of normal paper. So all you need to build this is popsicle sticks, a couple of pipe cleaners, print out the paper, and some glue guns. So Have a good week. I'll see you guys hopefully at our Zoom meeting where we'll talk about some of this stuff again, and I get to call you out and see what you remember, what you know, help you think a little. And that's it. Have a good time. See you guys. Bye.